Time now for the Sunday panel. Tonight, the politics of feminism. This past week, Facebook and Apple made news for giving female workers coverage for egg freezing. Market regulators across Canada are pushing to get more women into the corporate boardroom. And on the political front, the NDP unveiled an affordable childcare plan. So everyone seems to be reaching out, trying to appeal to women. And for the first time in a long time, even feminism is in the air. When it surged in the 60s and 70s, feminism was a fighting word.
I no longer accept society's judgment that my group is second class.
A rallying cry for equality.
Tell it like it is, sisters, tell it like it is.
And under that banner, battles were won. Access to birth control and abortion and expanded career opportunities. But over the years, many equated feminists with man-haters, and feminism became a dirty word.
It's hard for me to say that I would be like full-out feminist.
I don't like to label myself feminist.
I don't go around broadcasting it.
A poll done earlier this year showed only 17% of Canadian women strongly agreed they define themselves as feminists. But that might be changing.
Feminist, a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes.
It's in Beyoncé's act, touted by Harry Potter star Emma Watson at the UN.
I decided that I was a feminist, and this seemed uncomplicated to me.
A trendy shout-out for stars of every stripe.
I feel like I'm one of the biggest feminists, in the world.
Feminist? Yeah, actually.
I would call myself a feminist.
I'm a feminist as well. Any feminists here? Clap, any people?
So the word is back, but what does it really mean? I'm joined by our panelists. Stephen Marsh is a culture critic and writes for Esquire magazine. Tasha Carradine is a political commentator and columnist with the National Post. And Jordan Owens is a communications consultant and pollster in Toronto. Tasha, I'll start with you on this one. Is feminism cool again?
Well, I think it is for some cohorts, especially young people, young women perhaps, who will look up to Beyonce and Katy Perry and Miley Cyrus, God help us, and say, I identify with them. If they say it's cool, then it is. But I think for other generations of women, the word is still fraught with a lot of the baggage that you mentioned, such as man-hating and a sort of a push me, pull you attitude. I mean, do we need feminism now in a classic sense in this day and age? Do I want to be labeled as a feminist when I don't think perhaps necessarily what feminism embodies is necessary today?
We'll get back to that in a sec, but Stephen, is it cool?
Yeah, well, I think it's having a lot of different moments. One of them is cool. There's also a new kind of intellectual movement of feminism that's afoot that's very interesting, and I think there's also a new political impetus, both in Canada and in America, that's very serious and very policy-driven, and yeah, it's not just cool, it's more important than cool. Feminism is definitely having a wider effect than it has had in a long time.
Jordan, you weren't around for the first few waves of feminism that we saw there. What do you think for young people today? Is feminism cool?
I think feminism is cool, and I would proudly say that I'm a feminist. My friends are feminists, and I think that it speaks to us in a way that maybe we weren't around to fight those battles, but we definitely see the benefits that they've made and see that there's really still a gap in gender equality, and there is still room and advances that we can go for.
But is Katy Perry the feminist icon that you would hope for?
You know what? I don't feel like I'm in a position to tell Katy Perry that her feminism is less genuine or real than my brand of feminism. I think that there's plenty of space in the movement for people who are pop culture stars, just like there's space for people who want to take a more serious approach or a more philosophical approach.
Tasha?
Well, I wouldn't accuse Katy Perry of being a philosopher. She's a great pop icon, I agree. But I think the kind of feminism that is being sold by pop icons certainly will help perhaps sell their records. It's a branding thing. It's a kind of bandwagon you think people want to get on. Think of climate change also as a bandwagon, the environmental movement for a lot of stars. But I think at the end of the day, the kind of message they're sending, the so-called empowerment by taking off your clothes, it doesn't really advance feminism. I take issue with that. And Beyonce's videos, one of them, Partition, is a very sexualized depiction of women. So it's kind of at odds with some of her other work. There's a real contradiction in the message they send of feminism and the type of image they portray in their music.
Absolutely, but I think that these people are celebrities and they are marketing a product. And if they also want to sort of stand up and take the position that they have in society as being able to influence other people, and they have that soapbox. So if they want to stand there and say, you know what, and also men and women should be equal, I think that's more power to them.
What do you think, Stephen?
Well, I mean, I think the thing about pop culture is that it's totally ephemeral. And also, its effect is really hard to register. I mean, it's not like, feminism's not like a brand of vodka. It's not because, you know, Jay-Z's doing it, suddenly it's going to sell. I mean, I think we should just remember that, like, the generation that saw Bob Dylan and Joan Baez march with Martin Luther King Jr. grew up to be the yuppies and redefine greed on a whole new scale than we had ever seen before. So the effect of these things is actually, I think to imply that there's a direct effect, like celebrities support this, therefore it has power.
Well, they have got us talking about it again.
Well, they've got us talking about a word. You know, what they're not talking about is the OSC policy of increasing board membership, which is actually really important and could change the lives of women forever. That's not what they talk about.
What frustrates me is what they don't talk about is where feminism, I think, is actually extremely relevant, which is in countries where there's oppression of women for religious reasons or for autocracy or out of poverty, where we see that women are not advanced because they don't have the levers of power. And instead of concentrating or micromanaging the issues that we have in the West, I don't consider myself a feminist for many reasons. I'm an equalist, but it frustrates me that women who do consider themselves feminists aren't fighting those battles. That, to me, would be more important for Beyonce to talk about.
Well, the word is really interesting. Like Katy Perry until recently said she wasn't a feminist because she didn't realize what it meant. So there's some interesting, there was a poll done just a few months ago. Let's check out the stats. It said that only 16% of Canadians strongly agree with saying that they define themselves as feminists. But then 63% of Canadians strongly agree with the support of equal opportunities for women, which is the official definition of feminism, right? So, I mean, how do you explain that?
Well, the official definition, though, doesn't necessarily mean what the whole picture is in people's minds. There's an official definition, and then there's the stigma and the baggage and other things that are attached to it. And if you want equal opportunity for women, you might not also consider that your primary raison d'être. I mean, I'd like equal opportunity for people regardless of gender or sexual orientation or many things. So if you're not going to be, if you want to fight that battle for equality of people, why restrict yourself to the feminist movement? I find that's too narrow a box to put yourself in.
Or go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah.
But I think that there's actually been a big push in feminism lately for intersectional feminism, which takes a look at the ways that, you know, Indigenous women or women of color or women who are from lower socioeconomic backgrounds are affected not only by their gender, but also by their class or their race or their First Nation status. And I think it's really important also to look at, you know, you and I, we're both white women, we're doing pretty well, but just because it's the best time in Western society or Western civilization to be a woman doesn't mean that it's that great for everyone.
No, but
I want to focus it back on, not that that's not hugely important, but I want to focus it back in because we have a man at the table. And this whole idea of feminism means that you're a man-hater. I mean, has the brand been hurt? Does it need to be rebranded?
Well, I mean, I think when you look at that poll, it's really, I mean, that poll shows that 17% think of themselves as activist feminists. They think of that as their political affiliation. But then the 63% who think women are entitled to equality, they've just taken the beliefs of feminism and just swallowed them to the point where it's no longer an ideology. It's just sanity, which is great, you know, which is wonderful and is entirely the way it should be. It seems to me like that actually sounds pretty sensible to me.
So it's obviously trending in pop culture. In terms of politics, I mean, we've seen some moves. Justin Trudeau is pro-choice, and we saw the NDP move on daycare this week. Where is this going, do you think, in terms of politics in this country?
Well, women are the biggest group of swing voters in our country. Women decide all the elections that we have. And I think that the political parties all do research, and they all know that this is the case. And that's why increasingly you see political parties and politicians speaking to women and speaking in ways that target women directly. So Justin Trudeau was in Chatelaine this week. And there was a lot of controversy about that I don't really want to get into, but you know, you also had Tom Mulcair was on a women's marketed program on another station.
But is this going anywhere? I mean, they're all talking about it. Stephen, are we actually getting anywhere?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think Canada's a really interesting case because we have a culture with a lot of feminist icons. We have a very, I would say, culturally, we have a lot of positive female role models from Alice Munro back to E. Pauline Johnson. I mean, historically we have, and yet we're in a terrible state that we never talk about. 6% of board members in Canada are female. 78 MPs out of 308, right, are female, which is really catastrophically low. These are unacceptable numbers. This is a real national disgrace that, you know, other countries in Europe are dealing with it. America is even dealing with it. We are not dealing with it politically. We don't talk about it.
Well, I think, though, we also have to remember that over 50% of women, over 50% of people in university are women. Graduates are women. Women who graduate university now actually make more money until they have children, statistically, than their male counterparts. So there is a lot of progress. And I agree with you. It would be nice to see the numbers higher, but what is the answer to that? I wouldn't want to see legislation, and I wouldn't want to see quotas.
I mean, it's nearly 60%. It's nearly 60% in America, but at the same time, there are only 15 self-made female billionaires in the world. There's just this really strange divide between women achieving power in the middle of their lives, but not in positions of actual, you know, actually owning stuff, actually controlling stuff.
Well, I don't think that is that strange when you consider that until this last century, women didn't have the right to vote, and didn't have the right to own property, didn't have those tools to advance their position, which ironically were granted by men, we have to remember too, and this goes to the he to she of Emma Watson. Yeah. Exactly, that we do need to actually engage men, because at the end of the day, it's about human rights. It's not just women's rights, it's rights for everyone.
We're almost out of time. I'm going to end with you, Jordan. So what are you going to watch for to see whether this goes anywhere, or is just good marketing?
Well, I think that it'll be interesting to see, you know, how the political parties continue to talk about issues that matter to women, and what issues political parties decide or determine matter to women. You know, are they going to stay focused on things like abortion and healthcare, or childcare, or are they going to talk about the ways that women are impacted by the economy, that women can be assisted overseas by our foreign policies? So, you know, we have a lot of space to go, especially for women who are of other backgrounds.
And Katy Perry will be out there in front leading all of us down the path. Thanks so much. That was fun.
Thank you.